My phone clattered to the kitchen floor, the screen glowing with an image that stole the breath from my lungs. There was my daughter, Zoe, in a wedding dress, smiling beside a man I had met only twice. The date stamp on the photo was from yesterday, and the caption read, "Mr. and Mrs. Ryan Miller, finally won. So grateful to our families for this perfect day." Our families. The words echoed in the silence of my empty kitchen. I was not in the picture. I had not been there. I had not even known. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal from someone you loved, subscribe to this channel. There are more stories like mine, and you're not alone. My name is Megan Pierce, and for 65 years, I believed that being a mother was the most important role I would ever play. I raised Zoe alone after my husband, David, died in a car accident when she was just 3 years old. I worked as a receptionist at a dental office by day and took in sewing alterations at night to pay for her dance lessons, her school trips, the little extras that she dreamed of. I saved every spare penny for her wedding, imagining the day I would help her choose her dress, plan the flowers, stand by her side as she vowed to love someone forever. But last Thursday, as I scrolled through my Facebook feed over a cup of coffee, I saw that photo and my world shattered. I called her immediately, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone. "Zoe, honey, what is this? Did you get married?" "Yeah, Mom, yesterday. It was just a small courthouse thing." Her voice was casual, distant, like she was commenting on the weather. In the background, I could hear traffic, the clink of glasses, laughter. Everything but the warmth I needed. Why wasn't I there? Why didn't you tell me? My voice broke. "It was really last minute, Mom. Only immediate family was there. Ryan's parents, that's it. Immediate family." The phrase was a knife to my heart. Since when was I not immediate family? I ended the call, staring at the cracked screen of my phone. The image was still there. Zoe beaming, Ryan beside her, and his parents, Richard and Barbara Miller, flanking them like proud bookends. I deleted the photo, but the damage was done. A question began to form, one I never thought I'd ask. What is a mother when she is no longer considered family? I spent the rest of the day in a daze, wandering through my small house in Oakwood, Georgia. Every room held memories of Zoe. Her first steps in the living room, her artwork still stuck to the refrigerator, the worn spot on the stairs where she'd sat to tie her shoes for school. I had given her everything, sacrificed my own dreams for hers. When she wanted to study graphic design at the University of Georgia, I took on extra work, skipping meals to afford her tuition. I remembered the nights I stayed up, sewing hems and taking in seams for clients, my eyes straining in the dim light, all so she could have a future without debt. The days blurred together. Zoe didn't call back. I sent her text messages, careful not to sound accusing, asking how she was if she needed anything. Her replies were brief, delayed. "I'm fine, Mom, we'll talk soon." Soon never came. I lay awake at night, the silence pressing in on me, and I realized that I had spent my life building a home for someone who had moved on without me. But a week after the wedding, something shifted inside me. I was cleaning out the hall closet, a task I'd been putting off for years, when I found a box of old school projects. Among them was a Mother's Day card Zoe made me when she was 7. "To the best mom in the world," it read in crayon. "I love you more than all the stars." Beneath it was a receipt from a pawn shop dated March 15, 2014. I had sold my grandmother's pearl necklace to pay for Zoe's senior prom. The dress, the limo, the photos, the receipt was for $200. I had told Zoe I'd saved up from my sewing jobs. She never knew about the necklace. Holding that yellowed paper, I felt a surge of clarity. This was my turn, my small reclamation. I took a picture of the receipt and sent it to Zoe with a simple message. "Remember your prom? I never told you how I paid for it." It was a seed, a way to show her that her perfect memories were built on my silent sacrifices. She didn't respond, but I knew she saw it. For the first time, I had taken back a piece of my story. The memories came flooding back after that. I thought of when Zoe was 10 and broke her arm falling from a tree. I was between jobs, uninsured, But I worked out a payment plan with the hospital, taking on double shifts to cover the bills. I remembered her 16th birthday party, where I rented the community center and cooked for 50 people, spending weeks preparing her favorite foods: lasagna, garlic bread, and massive chocolate cake. She had hugged me and said, "Mom, you're amazing. I hope I'm just like you when I grow up." Those words had been my anchor through so many storms. But things began to change when she went to college. She met Ryan during her sophomore year, and suddenly her priorities shifted. Ryan came from a wealthy family in Atlanta. His father was a corporate lawyer, his mother a former model. The first time I met him, I cooked a big dinner: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans from my garden. Ryan was polite, but I saw his eyes flicker around our modest home, taking in the faded curtains, the well-worn furniture. "It's very cozy, Mrs. Pierce," he said, and I felt the judgment behind his smile. Zoe became distant after that. Visits home became less frequent. When she did come, she was always in a hurry, checking her phone, making excuses to leave early. "Ryan and I have plans," she'd say, or "We're meeting his parents for dinner." I tried to be understanding. I knew young couples needed their space, but the distance grew. When she graduated, I was so proud. I sat in the audience, tears in my eyes, as she walked across the stage. Afterward, we went to a nice restaurant, but Ryan's parents were there too. They talked about their summer home in the Bahamas, their trips to Europe, things I could only dream of. When I mentioned that I had just gotten a promotion at the dental office, there was an awkward pause before Barbara Miller said, "How lovely for you," in a tone that suggested it was anything but. Later, Zoe took me aside. "Mom, maybe don't talk about work stuff. The Millers are different." The word stung. I was different. I wasn't good enough. The wedding plans started a year ago. Zoe told me they were thinking about getting married, and I was thrilled. I offered to help, to pay for things, but she always demurred. "We want something small, Mom, nothing fancy." I pushed down my disappointment. I had dreamed of a big wedding for her, but I respected her wishes. Months went by with no details. When I asked, she was vague. "We're still figuring things out." I should have known then that something was wrong. Then 2 months ago, I noticed Zoe posting more photos with Ryan and his family. Dinners at expensive restaurants, weekends at the lake house. But when I asked about them, she was evasive. "Just out with friends," she'd say. The final straw came when she canceled our weekly phone call 3 times in a row. "Sorry, Mom, work is crazy," she'd text. But I saw on Instagram that she was at a gallery opening with Ryan's parents. The day I found the wedding photo, I had called to invite her over for lunch. "Can't, Mom, busy with work," she said. But now I knew the truth. She had been busy getting married without me. In the weeks that followed, I moved through my life like a ghost. I went to work, I came home, I tended my garden, but the joy was gone. Zoe continued to post honeymoon photos from Hawaii, sunset walks on the beach, fancy dinners, romantic moments. Each one was a fresh wound. She never called to explain, never apologized. It was as if I had ceased to exist. But that receipt from the pawn shop was the beginning of my awakening. I started to look at my life with new eyes. I had always defined myself as Zoe's mother. Who was I without her? I began to make small changes. I signed up for a gardening class at the local community center. I started reading books I'd always meant to read. I reconnected with an old friend, Linda, who lived down the street. We started having coffee together on Saturdays. Then one afternoon, I was going through my financial papers, and I found something I had forgotten, a savings account I had opened when Zoe was born. I had put away a little money each month, thinking I would use it for her wedding or her first home. Over 40 years, it had grown to $40,500. I had never touched it, always thinking it was for her. But now I realized it was for me. On June 10, 2024, I decided to use that money for myself. I made an appointment with a financial advisor to discuss investing it for my retirement. It was a concrete step toward independence. Zoe called me a month after the wedding. "Mom, we're back from Hawaii. We want to come over and see you. We have gifts." Her voice was bright, false. I agreed, but my heart was guarded. When they arrived, Zoe looked tanned and happy, her arm linked with Ryan's. She handed me a bag of souvenirs, a shell necklace, a coffee mug with Aloha on it, some macadamia nuts. "Thanks, honey," I said, setting them aside. We sat in the living room and I served tea. "So tell me about the wedding," I said, my voice steady. "It was beautiful, Mom," Zoe said, avoiding my eyes. "Very simple. Just at the courthouse with Ryan's parents. We didn't want a big fuss. Why didn't you tell me? Why wasn't I there?" I asked directly. Zoe sighed. "Mom, it was a spontaneous decision. We didn't want to hurt your feelings, but we knew you'd want a big wedding and we just couldn't do that. It was easier this way." "Easier for whom?" I asked softly. "For everyone," Ryan chimed in. "My parents handled all the details. It was less stress for Zoe." I looked at my daughter, this stranger who had once been my little girl. "You didn't think I would want to be there? To see my only daughter get married?" "Mom, please don't make a scene," Zoe said, her voice tight. "We're here now. Can't we just move on?" That was the first quote that stuck with me. Can't we just move on? As if my pain were an inconvenience to be brushed aside. They stayed for an hour, talking about their honeymoon, their new apartment, their plans. I listened, nodded, asked questions, but inside I was building a wall. When they left, I felt emptier than ever. But that night I made a decision. I would not wait around for crumbs of attention anymore. I would live for myself. I started researching active adult communities online. I found one in nearby Decatur called The Gardens at Willow Creek. It had mixed reviews, but it offered independence with community. I scheduled a tour for the following week. In the meantime, I began to sort through my belongings. I decided to downsize to keep only what brought me joy. I donated old clothes, sold furniture I didn't need, and packed away Zoe's things in boxes. I would offer them to her, but if she didn't want them, I would let them go. Zoe called a few times, but I was often busy with my new activities. I had joined a book club, started volunteering at the local library, and was taking painting classes. For the first time in years, I had a social calendar that didn't revolve around her. "Mom, you're never home when I call," she complained during one conversation. "I have a life, Zoe," I said calmly. "I'm not just sitting around waiting for you." There was a pause. "Are you mad at me?" "I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. But I'm also moving on." The second memorable quote came then. "Moving on? From what? From me?" Her voice was sharp, accusatory. "From the relationship we had," I replied. "It wasn't healthy for me." She hung up shortly after, but I felt a strange sense of peace. I was setting boundaries. The tour of the gardens at Willow Creek was eye-opening. It was a beautiful facility with gardens, a pool, a gym, and various activities. The apartments were small but modern, and the residents seemed friendly. I met with the manager, a woman named Karen, who showed me around. "We have a vibrant community here, Megan," she said. "Many of our residents are like you, starting a new chapter." I filled out an application that day. I would use part of my savings for the buy-in fee and monthly expenses. I planned to move in 2 months. As the move date approached, I felt a growing excitement. I was nervous but also hopeful. I told Zoe about my plans during one of her visits. "Mom, you're moving to a retirement home." "Why? Are you sick?" she asked, alarmed. "It's not a retirement home. It's an active adult community. And no, I'm not sick. I just want to be around people my age, to have activities, to live my life. But what about me? What about when I have kids? Don't you want to be near me?" she said, her voice rising. The third quote, "Don't you want to be near me?" It was all about her still. "Zoe, when you have kids, I'll be happy to be their grandmother. But I need to have my own life first. I can't base my happiness on your timeline anymore." She left in a huff, but I stood my ground. The move was exhausting but exhilarating. I settled into my new apartment, met my neighbors, a lively group of women who welcomed me with open arms. I started attending yoga classes, joined the gardening club, and even tried line dancing. I was making friends, learning new things, and for the first time in decades, I felt like Megan, not just Zoe's mom. Zoe showed up unannounced one afternoon a month after I moved. She was alone and she looked tired. "Mom, we need to talk," she said. We sat in my small living room. "I got the box of my things you left," she said. "Why are you doing this? Why are you punishing me?" "I'm not punishing you, Zoe. I'm choosing myself. For years I lived for you. I put your needs before mine. But when you got married without me, I realized that I had become an afterthought in your life. I deserve more than that." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't think." "I was afraid you'd be disappointed with a small wedding. Ryan's parents insisted on keeping it simple, and I didn't want to upset them. So you upset me instead," I said, not unkindly. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "I know you didn't, but you did, and I can't go back to the way things were. If we have a relationship going forward, it has to be different. It has to be based on mutual respect, not on me always giving and you always taking." She cried then, deep, heaving sobs. I let her without comforting her immediately. It was a crucial moment. I was teaching her how to treat me. After that, things began to change slowly. Zoe started calling me more regularly, not out of obligation, but to genuinely check in. She invited me to dinner at her apartment and I went, but I kept the visit short. I was busy with my own plans. She seemed surprised, but also respectful. The climax came about 6 months after my move. Zoe asked to meet me for coffee. She looked nervous. "Mom, I'm pregnant," she said. "We're having a baby." I felt a rush of emotions, joy, fear, hope. "That's wonderful, Zoe. Congratulations." "I want you to be involved," she said. "I want you to be a part of this baby's life. But I understand if you need space." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I want to be a grandmother to your child, but on my terms. I won't be a babysitter on demand. I won't drop everything for every little thing, but I will be there for the important moments if you include me." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I will, Mom, I promise," and she has. She invited me to the baby shower and I went. She sends me ultrasound photos and asks for advice. It's not perfect, but it's better. We're building a new relationship, one with boundaries and respect. Now I sit on the patio of my apartment at the gardens, watching the sunset. The same phone that once brought me such pain now holds photos of my granddaughter Lily. The circle has closed, but I am different. I am stronger. I have learned that love should not require selfie or ratio. I have found my voice, and in doing so, I have found peace. If this story resonated with you, please share your own experiences in the comments below. I read everyone, and if you want to hear more stories like mine, subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me, and together, we can remind each other that we are never alone.